Let's go.
Today, we're taking our 87 YJ out for a little fun and a little abuse, because we know we've added more grunt than our old stock axles can take. Then we'll drag her back to the shop and add the kind of hardware that'll give our Jeep the legs to live up to its name. YJ Redemption.
Hey, thanks for joining us today on Trucks. Well, we're obviously not in the shop. We're out here at Woolies Off-Road Park. We got a resurrected YJ. We're gonna put it through its paces.
Yeah, we gave this tub its second life, starting with a 180,000-mile worn-out Jeep that really wasn't all that spectacular from the factory. So, we dragged it home and went to work. We yanked the Lane inline 6 and dropped in a freshened-up Junkyard 350, backed by a reman Turbo 350 tranny, and set it in place with a four-wheel drive hardware V8 swap kit.
We finished up the drivetrain upgrade with a slip yoke eliminator kit. Then we went to work on the stands, installing a trail-ready 8-inch lift system from Fabtech and 37-inch tall Pro Comp mud terrains.
Now, the last time you guys saw this thing, it was already on all fours, but we've added a few things like these Smitty-built tube fenders and these powder-coated bumpers front and rear from Rusty's Off-Road products.
Then we stripped off some of the fluff, like the fender flares and side steps. We topped off the fluids, bled the brakes out, ran in the cam, and we are ready to rock and roll.
But we told you guys right up front, we didn't think these stock axles would hold up with a new power and much bigger tires and wheels. So right now, we're gonna go find out exactly how much abuse these things will take before they break. Let's go.
That way. Carnage. Our rebuilt 350 not only sounded awesome, but with our EFI setup, we had power to spare, great throttle response, and no fuel starvation issues. No sweat, man.
Nailed it. Our 8-inch lift kit articulated well, and in all but the most hardcore of terrain, it kept all four tires on the ground, which gave us all the traction we needed and helped compensate for our open differentials front and rear. Keep going down the stairs.
But with the newfound weight of our 37-inch wheels and tires, the stock power steering pump had trouble keeping up, and the belt slipped just about all day long. Windshield. Sorry, Houston.
Well, who's giving it a shot?
I'll give it a shot.
All right, let's do it.
Well, everything's working great with the YJ. Nothing's broke yet, but we think we finally found the trail that's gonna kill our axles. This is I-65. And just in case you can't tell, I'm telling you, this hill is a killer.
Hey, yep, let's do it.
Even though the bottom of I-65 is pretty gnarly, our YJ walked right up it. No problem.
All right, little right, pedal.
So, as the hill got a little meaner, we got a little more confident.
Right.
And we thought we had it licked until... Is that it?
I don't think so.
Something broke.
You did it?
Something snapped, man.
Sheared the bolts right off.
Boom. Well, you get 300 horsepower engine spinning off a drivetrain that's designed for 112 horsepower at the best of the days. Well, guess what happens? We're going back to work. Well, now that we're back in the shop, we can see what happened. Now, the first thing you notice when you look under here is this aggressive pinion angle. It's kicked way up. That's definitely not where we had set that. What caused that is the weld actually broke between the axle tube and the center section. You can see the spot weld popped off here. That failure caused the pinion to twist up and put an enormous amount of stress on the U-joint. Found our weak link.
Now, the U-joint held up, as did our new drive shaft, but these mangled straps and sheared off bolts, along with the stock axle housing, just weren't up to the stress of our new V8 power and all the extra weight of these 37s. Not to mention these heavy-duty suspension components and Kevin's right foot.
Now, if you've done much wheeling, you probably found yourself in the same position we're in, with some broken parts and some decisions to make. Now, if you're upgrading your axles, you know there's a lot of options. You got a lot of different ways that you can go. But the one thing we know for sure is that these stockers, they gotta go away. Now, rebuilding these stock assemblies would only get us so far. We might get stronger axle shafts, steeper gears, and there's always braces and gussets so we could weld on to strengthen the tube. But ultimately, they're just not designed for as much power as we've got pushing them. So an upgrade is definitely in order.
Now you've got tons of options with the Jeep. A set of bolt-in Dana 44s, some junkyard axles, or even a Ford 8.8 out back. But we wanted to make sure we had axles that could match our new power and we'll never have to worry about again. Now Curry introduced the Rock Jock high pinion axles a few years back and put the industry on its ear. But its aluminum center section was geared mainly towards lighter weight rock crawlers. But these new iron Rock Jocks feature the same high pinion design, still have the strength of the Dana 60 ring gear, but with a super strong nodular iron housing. Now we went with ARB selectable air lockers front and rear, steeper 456 gears, and a Ford Explorer rear disc brake setup.
One other cool feature is that we can swap our knuckles and brakes from our old Dana 30 into our new Curry Dana 60 up front. That, combined with Fabtech's flexible lift system, makes this a pretty easy axle swap.
When we get back from the break, we'll get our new axles under our Jeep, then sparks are gonna fly when we cut our drive shafts to the right length. Stick around.
Hey, welcome back. If you're just joining us, we found a cure for our YJ's weak axles, which failed miserably out on the trail under the punishment of our new EFI 350 and much heavier wheels and tires.
Now to take care of that weak link, we're using Curry's new Iron Jock axle assemblies front and rear. Now even though these Dana 60s are the cool high pinion style, we still have to find the correct pinion angle at ride height before we burn these perches in. Make sure you center the axle between the leaf springs so you don't have any tracking issues. And you want to make sure that your pinion angle is adjusted down a couple of degrees to compensate for the axle rotating up under acceleration.
Now this Fabtech traction bar did a really good job of holding the driver's side axle tube in place. Unfortunately, the factory plug welds weren't up to the task. They failed under load. Well, these won't. So with our pinion angle set, we can reuse the bracket we cut off the stock axle tube, reattach our traction bar.
Up front, we had ordered our Curry Rock Jock 60 for a Jeep TJ instead of a YJ because our new lift kit utilizes the TJ's control arm mounting points and it bolts right into place. Our coilovers up front worked great on the trail. They're not going anywhere, but we got to find another place to mount them. So here's where we can kill two birds with one stone. This area here behind the C could use a little strengthening, so we can gusset this, drill it in the front, put a matching gusset out back, and now it becomes a strengthening point plus a shock mount.
Using a cardboard template, we transferred our pattern to 3/16 plate steel, which is strong enough for a gusset, but thin enough to be easy to work with. Since we're utilizing our factory Dana 30 knuckles on our Dana 60 housing, a stock brake rebuild will be just fine. Plus these 11-inch rotors will match up nicely with the new disc brakes we've got on the rear.
Okay, with our suspension compressed, now we can check our drive shafts. With our new high pinion design of these axles, the pinion is longer, so now our drive shaft is too long. It's an easy fix out back. All we got to do is trim off this slip shaft.
Now up front, we didn't get as lucky. We're going to actually have to cut and re-weld the front drive shaft to the correct length. Kevin's right. This is an easy fix for the back, but it's not an easy cut. Shortening the hardened spline section requires more than just your hacksaw. Get yourself a powerful abrasive cutoff wheel and be prepared to spend some time. When you're finally through, be sure and deburr the ends of the spline.
Now Ryan's job was no cakewalk either. First, grinding away and cutting through the factory weld, he literally knocked the spline section out of the front drive shaft, but he didn't have to cut them. The tube section only needed to be shortened a few inches, but to reattach it to the spline section, he used a homemade setup to check and adjust the runout or the wobble of the drive shaft while he rewelded it.
Next up, the articulation ramp is gonna twist our YJ into the right shape to mount our shocks. And later, we're back on I-65 for a shot at a little sweet revenge. Hang on.
Right next to you, you can go right.
Right there, whoa, whoa.
Hey, welcome back to Trucks. We're almost ready to go back out on the trail and tackle the hill that shredded our rear axle. Only this time, we're packing a little more heat.
Now you guys may have noticed we didn't mount our shocks when we were underneath the YJ last time. That's because we wanted to use this articulation ramp to flex out the rear suspension and find the best place to mount them.
This put the axle at full droop on one side while fully compressing it on the other, and showing us how much travel we have to account for when welding the shocks into place. Be sure and weld your shock mounting tabs as high up on the axle tube as possible for better ground clearance.
Now our Curry axles came loaded with ARB selectable air lockers. That way we can maximize our traction while off-road. With our axles finally buttoned up and installed, we can mount the compressor, route the air lines, hook up a few wires.
Air from the compressor activates the ARB locking mechanism, turning our open differentials into locked axles, which is almost a requirement for getting up a trail like I-65. Now, the ability to lock and unlock a differential at the flip of a switch is good, because unlocked, you can drive on the street without the noise and clonking of a traditional locker. And out on the trail, an open diff allows you to make tighter turns and reduces stress on steering components.
Now I know there's some of you guys that are saying, both of you knew the stock axles weren't gonna hold up, so why didn't you replace them with all the rest of the stuff you've added? Well, the truth is, we kinda wanted to have a little fun and break some stuff. But more than that, we wanted to show you guys what happens if you don't plan your way through all of the aspects of a project buildup.
Stick around, because when we get back, we've got a score to settle with a big old pile of dirt and rock. Because now,
Touch left.
we've got something for it.
Hey, welcome back to Trucks. Well, we're back out here at Wooley's Off-Road Park, and this time we're locked and loaded. Literally, we've got ARB air lockers in our Curry iron jock axles, so now we finally have the drivetrain to match the newfound power that we stuffed into that YJ tub.
But first, we've got a score to settle with a trail called I-65. It got the best of us one time, but not this time.
150 feet in length, with an elevation change of more than 40 feet. This debris field looks more like a war zone than a trail, but revenge is sweet and failure is not an option. Now, even with your trail scouted, a line picked out, and all new power, you still have to improvise and think your way through the obstacles. Okay, touch left. Back up and get it. Okay, you're good, yeah. Good over here. Our Pro Comp mud terrains proved their value by giving us the traction we needed and standing up to all the abuse we were putting them through. Nope.
Right away, it was obvious we finally had the right hardware for this hill.
Yeah.
The engine, transmission, and tires were all there, and our Curry axles with their selectable lockers proved to be the missing link that gave us the confidence and our YJ the ability to claw its way to the top.
You're right next to you. You can go right. Hell yes. Hell yes. Awesome, man.
Hell yeah.
Dude, good job.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. Can they show that on TV? Tore it up.
A little tough, but we made it.
And look, there's no parts down there. That's the best thing. All it takes is the right ammunition and you can kill any hill.
Lockers help a lot. Well, after we redeemed ourselves and proved our YJ, we did what anybody would do. We got back in line and did it again.
Hit it, man. You're good.
Sweet.
Hell yes. You're good, you're fine. Keep going. Yeah. Awesome, man, awesome. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Like a paved highway.
All right, well, what's next? There's
That
one.
way.
That way. With I-65 behind us and having suffered minimal damage, it was just more fun to be had. I think,
This thing is wicked.
it's unstoppable, man.
Put the pedal down. Hey guys, check this out. This is something designed for the extreme opposite end of the spectrum from what we use to get up I-65. This is Mickey Thompson's Sportsman SR Radial. This extra wide tire is a modern day version of their classic Sportsman tire with their distinct flame pattern tread. We've got ours wrapped around Mickey Thompson's HR1 rotary forged, CNC machined and polished 20 by 16 inch aluminum wheel. And this tire is an unbelievable 22 inches wide. The Mickey Thompson Sportsman SRs start at 150 for the front and 190 for the rear. Their HR1 wheels, 700 up front, about 1200 out back. And this is a wheel and tire combination you build a truck around. That might be something we do.
So how do you get more horsepower and torque out of a vehicle without turning a single wrench? Well, it's no big secret that with a late model vehicle, you can upload a performance tune-up into it with a programmer. And this Superchips Flash Pack can get you an extra 10 horsepower and 13 extra foot-pounds of torque in your gas-burning vehicle. And just because you don't have a big V8, that doesn't mean you can't get high performance. Those numbers are for this Ford Explorer with a 4-liter V6. You also get increased shift firmness, a higher rev limit, and a higher top speed limiter. And if any trouble codes come up on your dash, you can diagnose and clear them. The Superchips Flash Pack is available at most automotive retailers and mail order outlets and will cost you about $550. Well, since we've been talking a lot about axles today, here's a tip that you can take home. It's not going to cost you a dime. Say you're working on an axle, either your own or one out in a junkyard, and you want to know what the gear ratio is, but the ID tag is missing. What are you going to do?
Now for a locking differential, simply mark the 12 o'clock position of the pinion and the axle or tire, and go ahead and rotate the pinion and count how many turns it takes to rotate the axle one complete revolution. If it takes 3.5 turns, you've got a 3.5 to 1 ratio, what's more commonly known as a 350 gear set.
Now with an open differential like this one, it's pretty much the same thing. Just make sure you turn both sides the same direction at one time and count, or lock one side down and then count 2 revolutions on the one side that's free.
Now this one takes about 3 3/4 turns, so it's probably safe to say we've got a 373 gear set. Now this will get you in the ballpark, especially if you're out laying in the dirt out of the junkyard.
Hey, thanks for watching Trucks. We'll see you guys next week.